Don't worry about it, millennials. Don't worry, nobody's going to be punished. In our work, we don't hold people accountable. We should not talk about accountability. No. How do you see the role of accountability in effective leadership? What strategies can leaders use to ensure they are held accountable and foster a culture of accountability within their teams? Thank you, Valentine, for the question. After I read your comment, I went online and I tried to look for some input from the point of view of the internet, because for me it was so for granted what accountability is. And then I realized, I understood where your question is coming from. You are right. There's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of misunderstanding, there's a lot of resistance. Don't need to talk about accountability. Or some people try to present it in the light of it's harmless. Don't worry about it, millennials. Don't worry, nobody's going to be punished. Don't worry. No, in our work, we don't hold people accountable. We should not talk about accountability. No. I understand where your question is coming from. Unfortunately, here in the Western civilization and the Western world, where society has become so decadent, people don't think they need to act in order to survive financially. And therefore, there's so many concepts and so many philosophies that emerged trying to exempt people from facing the consequences of their own actions. So for me, before talking about the corporate culture or the business culture or the work ethics, we're talking here about something in the social interaction. We're talking about group dynamics, where there's a lot of double standards, where you have narcissistic parents or a narcissistic mother or a narcissistic father, and the golden child and the scapegoat. We talked about these dynamics in the past, where the golden child is never held accountable. He's always right, he or she, always above the law. Always his or her whims are the law. Everybody should be cautious and careful and ready to change everything in order to fit and to suit the whims of the golden child. Otherwise, the scapegoat will be held accountable, but not the golden child. The golden child is always right. This group dynamics has infiltrated the business culture in the Western world in the way that government is taking taxes from people who actually work and create economies, and it channels the taxes to the golden children of the system, their friends, their families, who are business people, but actually they are connected with the political system, but they can make mistakes as much as they want. Now, if you're in the private sector, we're talking about something else. But the narcissistic culture, the culture of double standards, when it becomes the mainstream, it creates that confusion of what accountability actually is. Because we are trying to look and see it's different. This system behaves different than this system, and this system different behaves. So we need to differentiate between group dynamics, where narcissism rules, where the whims of the golden child and the whims of the narcissist are the law, and the system that it's objective-oriented, where success is measured and survival of the system and the actors is dependent upon success. So they cannot afford failure. In the system of the golden children, of the social system of Europe, where anyway they have a lot of money that they can invest wherever they want. They can invest. They can have some organization, some institute that has to do with some gender, I don't know what, an institute that produce nothing, create nothing, don't contribute anything to the growth of the economy, don't contribute anything to culture, to society, but they have some political agendas that they need to finance in order to keep their positions in place. In that system, accountability has a different meaning. So, you want me to talk about accountability in this system or accountability in that system? Let's talk about what accountability actually is. In leadership that is objective-oriented, that must succeed, that must win, because success means life. Failure means death. Like in the military, like in wars. Since we talked about wars, you think about The Art of the War, the book. The first thing that they talk about there is accountability. In order to train that army of women, you can go and you can read or watch online what's going on there. Holding the women of the palace accountable is not something that I can talk about here on this channel now, in this video, for the algorithms not to feel bad about it. Because accountability. But you can go and check what's happening there and see what accountability means when we talk about being objective-oriented, when we talk about success as a matter of life and death. It's merciless. Accountability is merciless. Well, you need to hold the accountable, not a scapegoat. If you just need to save the positions of the golden children or the privileged people of the system, of course people will be looking for scapegoats in order to shift the focus to somewhere else or to save their beloved golden child from accountability. But this doesn't solve the problem and this doesn't save the system. This puts everyone in danger. For the long run, the whole ship would sink. The allegory of a ship is not a bad thing, actually. There's a captain and there's a ship. The captain's vision and the captain's objective is in line with the destination of the ship that everyone in the ship agreed upon. It's not a whim. It is not an idea. It's not a philosophy. It's an objective that is defined before everyone started sailing. So anything that goes out of line of that objective is to be held accountable, whether it is intentionally or out of ignorance. That way we improve. That way we learn. You cannot afford double standards. You cannot afford holding someone accountable while somebody else is getting away with everything, because this is an objective-oriented system. But now we know it in Europe. We are not living in an objective-oriented system because of the decadent economy that is financing privileged golden children where they actually feel also victims. You see all the far-right riots in England. Those far-right actually feel they are the victims. They feel that they are the victims. They think that the police is acting upon double standards. While the migrants are privileged, the refugees are privileged. People are running from wars. They have no jobs. They have their families behind. They're trying to survive. They have no aspirations of becoming rich and millionaires. They just want to survive the day. While the right wings don't need to worry about documentations, don't need to run after bureaucracy. They have everything attainable. Yet, they feel that they are the victims. This is the outcome of this double standard system, where the privileged feels that he or she is actually the victim, while looking at the victim, the scapegoat, as the perpetrator, as the privileged. He's too much privileged. How twisted, how narcissistic this society became on a social scale. Not talking about one family that is a narcissistic family. No. When I was a child, we remember there's one family that the father was narcissistic or was doing everyone else was normal. We're looking here, we're seeing societies. How can you hold anyone accountable? And of course, this has infiltrated also the business culture, because there is no more business culture. There is socialism. There's governments that are running the economy while slaves are working, following the instructions of the golden children. Very few space left for the private sector. So, if we want to talk about accountability in the private sector, first of all, we need to detect who's the one to be held accountable. Not to look for a scapegoat. This is the most difficult step here for so many businesses or for so many group dynamics and for so many people. It's to detect who is actually accountable. Not who they want to be accountable, not who they want to scapegoat, not who they want to protect. Who is actually accountable? This is the first one. If they really are looking for solutions, I'm not talking about the system that is saving its key positions and its gatekeepers. No, I'm talking about the ship, that the whole ship must survive. Not only one actor in the ship, or the son of the captain, or the wife of the captain. The wife of the captain is angry with him, so she's digging in the ship, and then they catch, and in order for the people not to get angry with the wife of the captain, they find a scapegoat, they throw him out of the ship, and everybody's happy, because everybody on the ship thinks that, oh, yeah, we held him accountable. Yeah, of course, with time, the whole ship will sink, because the actor who's actually causing the problems is still there on the ship. So, we're talking about businesses in the private sector, not those hybrid businesses, which is a little bit cooperation slash startup slash subsidies from the European Union slash donations from the, I don't know which institution. No, not that kind of businesses I'm talking about. I'm talking about sovereign businesses. One man or one woman who owns the business, no money from the government, no donations, and that person is creating wealth, creating value, selling that value to people who are actually looking for that value to consume it out of free will. Only in that context, we're talking about accountability in its pure meaning. Otherwise, people will stay confused what accountability is. In that context, in the private sector, where actually a person is creating his economy, is creating value and sells it, there are no compromises. Everyone must be held accountable. In Europe, for example, I'm living in Germany. If an employee is an asshole and I have to fire him or her, then I need to pay for him some privileges. Why should I hire employees in the first place? When the system is not allowing me, the government is not allowing me to hold my employees accountable. This is not an economy of growth. So you're talking about leadership, about accountability, about any of those terms in the system, the fascist system, there will be confusion. There's no one meaning to that. That is very broad. It's very open to interpretations. It can be defined by the judgment of anyone who's privileged in the system. There is no meaning for the term. The one meaning is in the context of sovereignty and survival and success. Genuine success, genuine survival, genuine sovereignty, not what the golden children are pretending to be. I've been online before I made this episode, and I watched a lot of videos, and I understand why this term is confusing. I hope I could shed some light on it. Thank you everyone for staying with me. Thank you, Valentine, for your comment. I hope I could give some inspiration. Thank you for being with me. I'm Shredy Jabarin. Ciao.